Global National reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Hopes for an imminent ceasefire in Gaza suffered a major setback after Israel boycotted the latest round of peace talks.
Our Europe Bureau Chief Jeff Semple has a front row seat in Moscow. Jeff?
Well, Donna, take a look at this impressive fireworks display lighting up the sky over Red Square and marking the end of Victory Day, a deafening display of patriotism and power.
Our Jeff Semple is in Kharkiv tonight and joins us now with more. Jeff.
Chris, when we visited Kharkiv back in March, Ukraine's second largest city appeared on the brink of falling to the Russians. But today, we saw a much different reality. This Russian-speaking city sits on Russia's doorstep, just 40 kilometers away. But Ukraine has pushed Russian forces back almost to the border. And it seems some left in a hurry. This was a Russian tank, that is, until it was captured by the Ukrainian forces in a battle with the Russians in Kharkiv last month. And the Ukrainians brought it here to this secret location so that Ukrainian soldiers can train and learn how to use it. So this is a look inside. They say it's similar in many ways, but it's a newer model and it's much faster. So they have to learn how to handle it. They say that this thing can go up to 100 kilometers an hour. In fact, they've nicknamed it the flying tank.
We begin with Jeff and the situation in southern Israel and Gaza. Jeff.
Donna, Israel is back in control of its territory, but the threat from Hamas remains, as we found out firsthand. On Tuesday afternoon, the sirens sounded, warning of a possible incoming strike. Residents are used to the occasional rocket fire, which is typically intercepted by Israel's air defenses, but not this time. We took cover and waited.
The Iron Dome is doing its job. But clearly, it's hands full here. Just a ton of explosions happening all around us.
Then one Hamas rocket made it through. When the bombing finally stopped minutes later, residents emerged to find their neighborhood in ruins. And take a look at this. Just a couple of blocks away from our earlier position, you can see the impact from that Hamas shell drilling into the street, into the concrete here. The impact shattering glass all around this residential neighborhood, and now the sirens are going again. We ran down and huddled together in this apartment basement, one of the many, many bomb shelters in a community that has long lived under threat.
You see, we're suffering. I have a sick mom here, and I have to take her, to bring her here, and it's hard.
The Taliban allowed us to monitor one of their patrols here on the streets of Kabul as the extremist group tries to project a friendlier face to the outside world. At the same time, it's also seeking international recognition and desperately needed foreign aid. The governor of New York State held a press conference late today to stress that at this point there are no signs, no indications that this was a terrorist attack. Residents, though, on both sides of the border were on edge for several hours today. This is the Rainbow Bridge right behind me. Take a look, one of the busiest non-commercial border crossings going into one of the busiest times of the year, American Thanksgiving. But as you can see, it has been closed since noon local time. And U.S. border officials just released this surveillance video that, as you can see, shows a car traveling at such a high rate of speed that it hits one of the border barriers on the U.S. side and then flies into the air, eventually coming down, crashing into one of those U.S. border booths and exploding upon impact. The FBI describing it as a vehicle explosion, and witnesses saying that parts of that car were incinerated and spread for dozens of meters. All right, that was it. The moment of total eclipse here in Niagara Falls. Suddenly felt like somebody turned out the lights. The temperature has really dropped by more than 10 degrees. It was looking like a lunar letdown, too much cloud cover to see anything. But there it is, making a brief appearance through the clouds. A total eclipse here in Niagara Falls, just in time. What did you think?
I think it was incredible.
Last summer, Andriy Pokarasa saved up enough money to buy a drone. The 15-year-old practiced flying every day at his home near Kyiv.
Тому що
I'm afraid of heights, but I love flying, he says. I like taking pictures from up high. But in February, Pokorasa's town suddenly found itself on Russia's warpath. Russian tanks were spotted heading their way. Ukraine's military didn't know the exact location, so they began looking for a drone pilot.
Drones have been a tool of war for years, but Ukraine has witnessed a proliferation of these consumer-level drones, which can be owned and operated by almost anyone from almost anywhere, giving the Ukrainian military potentially thousands of eyes in the skies.
It's like game changer for the war.
This drone shop owner says when Russia invaded, Ukraine's military didn't have any short-range drones. So he put out a call on Facebook for civilian drone owners to help locate Russian forces. The response was overwhelming.
If we didn't have such operators and drones who can help Ukrainian army, I think Kyiv already could be occupied by Russian forces.
More than 1,000 civilians answered the call to help, including the youngest volunteer, Pokorasa. The Russians were only a couple of kilometers away, but the military needed their exact coordinates. Pokorasa was the only experienced drone pilot in town. I was very scared, but if I didn't help them, the Russians could be here in a day, he says. The grade 9 student went with his father to a nearby field and put his drone up over the highway. Before long, he spotted an armored column of Russian vehicles. His father sent the images and coordinates to the military, and the Russian column was destroyed. Pokorasa's town was saved. Is she proud?
Так, звісно.
Yes, of course.
His mother says it was a sleepless night.
Я з Катєю, молодшою дочкою, вдома була.
I had no way of contacting them. I was so worried, she says. After that, she insisted they leave to Poland. With Russian forces now pushed out of this region, the family returned home last week. The military rewarded Pokorasa with this more advanced drone. And, he says proudly, he's also gained more followers on TikTok after posting some of his videos. I was so happy that I helped, he says, but also there were people in those Russian vehicles. They were occupiers, but still people. I don't know how to explain how I feel about it. The weight of the experience is a lot to carry, even for the bravest 15-year-old. Jeff Semple, Global News, near Kyiv.